Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Wattier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Wattier, and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Doing fantastic, my friend. Hopefully you're listening to this after you've gotten some good sunlight into the eyeballs and you're wide awake and you've had your coffee. Maybe you're at lunch walking around in a nice sunny black coffee, sunny-filled park, because we're going to be talking about sleep and weight loss today and the underlying drivers of how sleep and insulin resistance are directly related. You can click the link in the show notes under linked articles, and you'll see the article that we are discussing or where this conversation started from. And then we're going to add our additional insights, as sleep has been one of my key areas to help uncover my blood sugar issues, insulin resistance, and reverse it and get my life and my health back. So Tommy, as we welcome in the new listeners, you want to hear more about how Tommy and I transformed through the tried and true art of fasting, head back, listen to episode 1. Give us a little grace, we ask, because we were new and we just had a story to share. And that's why we do what we do each and every week, helping you guys, the listeners, to integrate fasting into a lifestyle, to get off of that dieting roller coaster and that on-off, good-bad type dieting mindset. We want to turn fasting, because never mind is it just so powerful in terms of getting the scale moving and getting the weight off, but there's so many other incredible health benefits as well. So as we welcome the new listeners in and the old school OGs that have been with us for a while, thank you for continuing to join us week to week. We want to give you one or two big takeaways from today's conversation, because sleep, Tommy, especially in my world when I was growing up, and I know it's the same in yours, just from the stories that we've shared, it was always worn as a badge of honor that, I watched my family up in cold, snowy, rainy, chilly, damp, dark New England, that, sunlight was not as prevalent as it is here in Texas or when I lived in Florida because of the length of the day. But everybody was stressed and nobody slept. And everybody was running around doing a million things, right? And I moved away and I went, not everybody's like this. It's different. It's a different way of life. And one of the things I grew up with was this, I'll sleep with them when I'm dead kind of mindset.
Yes. I said that 1,000 times.
I can push through. I was always the guy staying up late, watching the Monday night football games or Saturday Night Live when I was probably too young to be watching those things, up late. With the little black and white TV. Yes, I said black and white underneath my comforter in my room to hide the light. My parents knew. But I was always like doing the homework in the middle of the night, putting off the term paper until last minute. So sleep was never a priority. And I just didn't realize for so many years what I was doing to my metabolic health and promotion of insulin resistance.
Yeah. You just hit on something there where I heard some perfectionism too, with that black and white, on or off. Also, just the wearing of the badge. If you've ever worn like not needing all the sleep as a badge of honor, then that means that you may have been attracted to the idea of getting more things done or like pushing
a performer, type A personality.
Right? Yeah, right. And so that can really lean into some perfectionist tendencies, which can really backfire, especially on a long-term weight loss journey as well.
Heck, even a long-term, or maybe even a fasting schedule.
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. Like, I didn't hit my 22-hour
23 and a half hours, not 24. Yeah. Guess I'll just throw in the towel.
Oh, well, how many questions
by the way, I'm speaking like that, about myself. Okay.
For sure. Go ahead. For sure. No, yeah, we're not preaching here. We've done it. We've said it. We've wondered the same things. But if you zoom out for a second, you take a look at even just that question, which we get it a lot, like OMAD is not 24 hours, right? Like, and so then there's this major like,
what happens if I eat dinner every day? Wouldn't it be a 23? Wouldn't I have to move my dinner an hour later every day?
Right. when should I stop? Should I stop that at 10 p.m. or should I stop that at 11 p.m. and just reset? And I go, no. Shh. Like, quiet the noise. You got to quiet that noise. So some of that perfectionist noise is one of the things that we're going to have to turn down. But that can come back to this idea of sleep is so important. There's a reason why our body demands that for every 3 hours in the day, one of those hours is spent sleeping, resting, recovering, rejuvenating, and restoring our body processes. And like, the more perfectionist or the more driven we are, sometimes it means that we're finding in the margin this opportunity to get more stuff done. But we don't even realize necessarily that I'm cutting myself off at the ankles in order to optimize my health, take control of my weight, reduce my medications or get off something, or not worry about the quote unquote generational curse that's been following me around, whatever that may be.
Yeah. So when we look at sleep or we look at weight loss, let's say a lot of people come to fasting for weight loss. Let's start there, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
To us, fasting simplified day to day, right? Simplified meal prep, simplified planning, simplified my life.
Yeah.
As it has for so many others as well. So anyone trying to lose weight typically will focus on the diet and exercise. That's what we've been conditioned to do.
Yeah.
So cut back on food intake, make healthier choices as kind of a subset, a kind of in between the lines thought there as well.
Right.
And then ramping up the workouts is going to increase my or bend the calorie in, calorie out equation to my favor. Right. And that's how you're going to shed the weight. But there is some critical hormonal contributors to successful weight loss, never mind the societal, familial support piece, monitoring piece, excitement piece, right? Like goal setting, all of these things to the weight loss process. So yes, what we eat on our plate also matters as well. But what we're finding is that obesity just simply isn't, in a lot of cases, an overconsumption issue. Sleep has been shown to be a vital component because it is linked to several of the hormonal and metabolic processes that keep your body burning, aka your metabolism or your BMR or your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, in balance. So most adults, I wonder, we get this a lot when we do our 7-day challenges, the results that we get when it comes to sleep, there's a lot of less than happening, right? So adults typically need about between 7 and 8 hours. And there is a direct relationship between your amount of sleep and the scale. So for me, back in the day, if I had a poor night of sleep and I was up for, multiple times throughout the night or up for a while during the evening, now with kids, if I'm up, I don't weigh every day anymore, but if I'm up, a few nights ago, I was up, for a couple of hours in the middle of the night, taking care of a little one. I knew that next day, even before kids, that if I was up in the middle of the night, that scale would not move down or most likely it would go up.
So frustrating too.
Right. You're doing all the right things. You're counting the calories, tracking the macros, hitting your fasting windows. And you're going, it was working. Why is it not working anymore?
Yeah. Man,
so
maybe I need to restrict my calories a little bit more,
Right. Maybe I need to I'll start eating salads again. I thought if I fasted, I could eat more what I wanted.
So frustrating.
So we want to talk about insulin, right? So when we're talking about insulin is the major traffic controller of whether or not your body is going to burn the energy that you've taken in or store it as fat. And some of the large epidemiological studies, almost stumbled on that one, have repeatedly found that people who are chronically sleep deprived are at a higher risk of obesity.
Yeah.
One of the models out there, the carb insulin model of obesity, is now taking into account sedentary activity, genetic predisposition, so something called epigenetics, and the environmental effects on our genes, our sleep health, so to speak, and our stress levels and our cortisol levels are all being kind of put into the equation of this insulin resistance driver. So it's not just food that can drive insulin resistance. And one study found that people sleeping less than 5.5 hours a night lost more non-fat mass. So more of the good stuff, more of the lean tissue, bone mass, etc., than fat. 5.5 hours a night on a mildly calorically restricted diet. They lost more non-fat mass than fat. Meanwhile, people who got 8.5 hours of sleep shed more fat.
Nice.
Well, some of you going 8.5 hours. I'm going 8.5 hours. How? My Whoop tells me I need 8.5 hours. I don't get 8.5 hours. What the heck?
Sure. Yeah, but So I was looking at sleepfoundation.org, and basically that's 7 hours. That's 7 hours a night is pretty magical. A little line in the sand, but more than 1/3 of U.S. adults, and we know the rest of the world is probably going to be fairly similar in developed areas. More than 1/3 of U.S. adults sleep less than 7 hours per night on average. Well, don't we have about 1/3 of adults being obese, and then much more than that being in the overweight category? The correlations start to really kind of stack up. Obviously, that's not causation, but I know that the less that I slept, that the more the scale was ticking up, just like you mentioned for you. And it makes sense when I'm like, oh, well, I was spending so much time in the gym and I was lifting all these heavy weights and I was tracking the macros and supplementing with my protein. But at the same time, it was like, your body doesn't have the time to recover from the normal processes, let alone worry about gaining muscle mass or, putting on more lean tissue or rev up the liver for fat burning when I just ingested, my last meal at, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, especially if it was a higher insulin inducing meal, even if my overall calories were within the field goal post for the day.
Right. And if you look at sleep in relation to some of those decisions that you were just kind of outlining there, there are some hormonal undercurrents that we'll unpack here in a minute that are driving those decisions. So 4 to 6 hours a night can play havoc on your metabolic and endocrine functions, simply just looking at blood glucose. So glucose levels after, let's say, a high carb meal, a later high carb meal, a later meal in the day with higher carbs, can reduce the rate of glucose clearance by 40% and the acute insulin response by 30%. So you're immediately already shutting down just by the night before having a lack of sleep. And then even a single night of 4 hours of sleep reduced insulin sensitivity in healthy men and women up to 25%.
Wow.
So you're going to have higher blood glucose levels, worse blood sugar control, and you're going to have more of those feelings that lead to those decisions that you make during your waking windows or during your fasting windows or during your nutrition opportunities, during your eating opportunities or your one meal a day are going to be directly related to the quality of sleep and the consistency of sleep that you get. I didn't want to believe this. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. Carry on.
Well, whenever you go to make those decisions, it's like, if you know that they're going to lead to longer elevations in your blood sugar, it can start to make some sense where we feel the delta, we feel the difference, we feel the spike in the blood sugar, but what we feel more is the drop in the blood sugar. If you've ever
the
consumed
swing
donuts or something, and then you feel the whoosh, like, oh man, I'm coming down off this just sugar high. I feel the crash. Now I feel lethargic. Well, guess what? Insulin compounds that lethargic feeling. But the thing about making those late night decisions where I'm getting a lot more of my calories or my insulin response later at night, it's leading to the longer elevated blood sugar. Well, the problem is now I'm going to feel that in the morning too. And so I'm going to be waking up coming off of this like blood sugar crash that should have been long stabilized if I had, better foods earlier in the day. And now coming off of the lack of sleep, that's leading to more of that problem. And it's like, I could wake up, I could be having the right calories, the right macros, doing all the right things. And then I'm waking up and now I'm just feeling just starving, or I feel this crash in energy early in the day. Like, what the heck is going on? I'm just trying to get going here. I guess I need some more coffee, and now I'm chasing it. And that can be just detrimental.
So something you just mentioned there was this one study. It was elevated ghrelin predicts food intake during experimental sleep restriction. And they looked at the study group, people who reduced their calories by 600 to 700 calories a day, right? So moderate to high caloric restriction. Every extra hour of sleep during this study was associated with 1.5 pounds more of fat loss.
Wow.
I'm still mad about this, okay? Right. Because I got 3 kids. Sleep is a commodity, right? It's not something resource. It's a valuable resource for everyone involved. Everyone's happier when we all sleep, right? So that ghrelin increase, I always think of ghrelin as like the growl, like growling stomach, right? That ghrelin happens mechanistically when you don't fast, your stomach empties and ghrelin goes up. But it also happens when your sleep sucks. Let's just be honest. And Another study from Mayo Clinic connects sleep loss to the accumulation of the worst type of fat, that visceral adiposity, right?
The dangerous one, yeah.
Right? An 11% increase in visceral fat accumulation when subjects were sleep deprived compared to getting a full 9 hours. Okay, now 9 hours, yeah, okay, get out of here with 9 hours. So we're just going to keep.
Hours? Come on.
Yeah, we're going to keep. Yeah, come on. Are you alive? Hello. I think is the meme with like the stick figure with the stick.
Oh yeah, just
like poking whatever it is that it's like do something, right?
Keep doing what you're doing if you're getting 9 hours though. Shout out.
Yeah.
And send us a note. How are you doing that?
Yeah, please tell me what your day-to-day schedule looks like, especially if you have 3 kids. So let's keep going back to that focus point of that 7 hours a night. Okay, let's get to the 7-hour mark and we'll see some pretty cool things change.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you're already at 7, like let's dial it up just a little bit, right? Like there's some cool things we can do to be proactive, to get better sleep, to compartmentalize it a little bit better. Because like in a previous episode, we talked about just time restricted feeding and the fact that even with the same calories coming in, we're doing better just by putting some guardrails, some guidelines around that. Well, we can do the same thing. It's called sleep hygiene, where we literally clean up our habits just a little bit. And it comes down to things like, okay, turning off devices just a little bit earlier, or going like, okay, what time am I actually getting into like sleep mode? Because some interesting information has been coming out recently, right? They've started looking at actual like things like growth hormone and other major endocrine markers, things that are completely contributed or completely determined by the quality of our sleep and how much we're getting or we're not getting. So one thing was like delta wave sleep is determinant in that essential growth hormone release that we need every single night. Well, the thing is, those delta waves come between when we start to feel drowsy and that first solid hour of sleep. So if we're doing things, if we're not protecting that initial part of sleep and we're going like, nah, I'll just stay up a little bit longer.
Another half episode of Netflix.
Oh man, the binge.
Another game on the phone, another app to scroll, another, I don't know. Oh man, I really don't want to, I don't want to harp on the kids to get to bed tonight.
Right.
Like I'm just tired. It's Friday. Let's just let them stay up.
Sure.
Any of this resonating? No, we don't do that in this house. Okay. It's not good for anybody.
Right. Oh man. I mean, these kind of things come up all the time, but then, so it's in that hour, like to protect that hour. If we don't, we missed it.
You missed the window.
Growth hormone release. Yeah.
Has anyone ever had this happen where you're like, man, I'm tired. And then you stay up a little bit later, you do one more of the thing, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, crikey, I missed my window. This happens with my son.
Sure.
If we are not leaving his room by 8:15, he's up. He's up till 9. In there, rolling around, squawking, talking to himself, right? But if we can get out of that room by 8:15, he's asleep. And I don't remember where it was coming from, but I know you'd pulled up the research, right, on those delta waves. That initial growth hormone spike, if you miss it in the evening, you don't get it back.
No, not till tomorrow.
You've missed the restorative opportunity for that day.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, how many swings and misses do you want to get out of 365? Now, I am 100% pot, meat, kettle on this right now. Okay? 100%.
Yeah.
Speaking to myself in the mirror, because right now,
we're speaking to ourselves for sure.
If you look at my Whoop, it's horrible.
It's like a recovery watch, right?
No, I need to go to recovery watch. It's like, you need 9 hours of sleep. You need to go to bed at 7:58 p.m. and get up at 9 a.m. And I'm like, huh? So in this season of life that we're in, it's very alarming to me, which is why I've been much more diligent with my fasting windows and with my carbohydrate, sweet, salty intake, because that's a slippery slope for me. Stress, sleep, and the macro calorie counting, eat less, move more mindset is what backed me into a corner, metabolically speaking. So when we look at some of the epidemiologic cohort studies, people that are chronically sleep. So here are some stats that can like kind of increase the, hey, I'm doing everything right during the waking hours, but my sleep needs to improve because it affects my hormones and my metabolic markers, and I don't want to undo all the hard work of the fasting that I've been doing type conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
This is me right now in real life. Okay. This is a very timely episode for me. People who are chronically sleep deprived are at a higher risk of obesity. Okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
Likely for all the hormonal and metabolic shifts discussed here. In that meta-analysis of studies, the risk of obesity went up 9% for every hour fewer of sleep from the baseline of 7 to 8 hours.
Wow.
30% if you're getting 5 hours versus 8.
That's hard to hear.
And why does that matter? Because obesity then comes with the increased risk of metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, etc. So the more limited the sleep duration, the greater the risk. Then there were studies that showed the relationship between curtailed sleep and type 2 diabetes have found that those who sleep 5 to 6 hours a day have double the odds of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes compared with 7 to 8 hours. In some studies, short sleep was a more significant risk factor than lack of physical activity. There's one last study to awaken you, see what I did there? To take some action on getting your sleep habits under wraps because of the effect that it can have on your waking decisions and your fasting times and your fasting hours.
Ooh.
So a study of short sleepers who received personalized tips for sleep improvement, they increased their slumber time from 5.6 to 7.1 hours.
Nice.
Experienced a significant decrease in overall appetite and their desire for sweet and salty foods over just a 2-week period. This is me. When I don't sleep, I am hungry all the dang time. My fasting timer and my fasting windows are more difficult, and I want all of the salty foods. I want them all. I want everything.
Yeah. Just crunch. Just something to crunch on.
Give it to me. Like, I don't care what it is. I don't even like pork rinds. I'll eat them. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to the inhibitions.
I don't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Self-control, discipline. I mean, throw them out the window. Like the cravings and the actual inhibitions. I mean, cravings are up, inhibitions are down. It is really tough because every little piece of fasting, you know, between like you mentioned, setting the timer, your food decisions, what time am I going to bed? Am I exercising? Some of that sleep hygiene that I heard the guys talk about.
Right.
All of these things
I didn't say no Netflix. I just said half less of an episode.
Yeah.
Just half an episode less.
Yeah, just like being cognizant of the time or like making that, because man, what an important decision. But think about it, like your inhibitions are at their lowest the later it gets, right? And so every little bit further, it's a little tougher to make that next best decision. But like that last decision that you make for the day is one of the most important ones for your recovery going into the next day. But then that also determines how that next fast is going to feel too, and how effective it is too, and what the scale is going to do the next day and then the day after that as well. So I mean, you're talking about a cycle here, momentum.
So we just had a question come in recently, or a comment come in recently about, so someone was in a fasting window. They were doing an overnight fast, like a lunch to the following day dinner.
Right.
You know, breaking that 30-hour mark. And they said, I was fasting, and then I took the dog for a walk, and I decided to stop and have one bourbon, or it was one tequila or whatever. And then just went home,
drink.
Didn't go down the rabbit hole, went home, went to bed. What did that do to my fast? Well, it broke it, obviously. But the next morning, for me, if I did that, I would be ravenous in the morning. And you could insert one slice of, I don't know, high fat food, like a pizza, one piece of pizza.
I was going to say, are you trying not to say pizza right now?
I was. The next morning for me, like I know when we go out to date night to very occasionally to this one special restaurant, I know what I'm getting, and I know the local draft craft beer I'm going to have, but I know the next morning on that Saturday morning or Sunday morning when we go out on a Friday or a Saturday, I know that I'm going to need to be more focused and hypervigilant, or else the old me comes back, right? So I turned from Bruce Banner into the Hulk, and I'm like, give me all of the food. And next thing I know, I'm in a coma on Monday because Sunday turned into an all-you-can-eat grace fest. So chronic sleep deprivation.
2 hours.
Yeah, insulin's just up. Like it's just all the way up, right? So sleep deprivation, decreased insulin sensitivity, right? So it's not as effective. You have a stress response, right? Which increases cortisol. Your appetite, your hunger and satiety hormones are all messed up. Your brain isn't as clear, more brain fog, right? And then you've got increased insulin, blood glucose. Your liver produces its own energy when you're like, I don't need more. I've got enough floating around. Your cortisol's up. You make poorer food choices, so less nutrient-dense food consumption. And then you've got the imbalance in your burning and storing of that energy. So you get more fat mass and then impaired weight loss. So these hormones, like we talked about, growth hormone, right? It's that non-REM sleep. It's that initial sleep portion of your sleep cycle, it literally regulates glucose and the breakdown of fats and protein. It is lean muscle protective. It protects your lean muscle tissue, which is what we want. We want more lean mass protection and more fat burning. Cortisol, it manages your body's use of macronutrients. So it increases your blood sugar and controls your sleep cycle and other activities. So increased cortisol, increased stress response, increases your fat storage and decreases your insulin sensitivity the following day. And then, Tommy, there's leptin, ghrelin, and then orexins as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about like throwing a wrench into the whole system. So if we can get the right sleep, if we can
But I'm
work
fasting,
on
Tommy.
Yeah. That's like the, hey, I'm fasting. Can't I just eat whatever I want? You know, it's like,
right.
Well,
you can for a short period of time.
You could
probably,
but it's probably not going to be nearly as effective as you'd like for it to be.
Yeah, right.
But it's at least a good place to start. Same thing with the sleep. But I'm fasting. Okay, well, that's good. So, but this is circling back to where we started this conversation with some of the black and white, on and off, perfectionist, subconscious tendencies that a lot of us have, especially if you like to get things done, or you wear sleep or lack thereof as a badge of honor sometimes, then you might find yourself being all or nothing in the fact that, hey, if I got the diet right, I don't need to get everything else right, or it's not going to matter as much as the diet. But what you put on your plate is part of the equation. How often you're eating or you're restricting your eating is also part of the equation. The amount and the quality of your sleep is also a big part of the equation. So like between those three things, I mean, that's probably going to account for the majority of your weight loss or weight control efforts in one of those three buckets. It's going to be the majority of it. So if we gave like equal weight to those things, then let's call them each like a third, right? Let's say they're each about a third of what matters here. So if you can get two of them right and one of them still suffering, you're still likely to get the majority of the results you're looking for.
Yep.
You know, like not every day is going to be a 10, right? So give yourself permission that, hey, it's not going to be perfect, but it is worth working on my sleep and my sleep hygiene, even if I'm getting my plate right, or even if my last fast was quote unquote perfect, you know, or I've been hitting my fasting consistently. That's great. It's still worth putting some deliberate effort into your sleep quality. So I'm going to encourage everybody, like take a step in each one, or at least, or in two of those buckets, right? Like next time you go to break your fast, like, okay, so pull up the blueprint to fasting for fat loss. If you don't know what I'm talking about, get it, download it. It's a free guide. And, you know, it's going to help you kind of outline what your next fast could look like, right? And so it's going
to take some of the tactical thinking out of the equation.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So tactical, check that box. And then, so I'm setting my fasting timer, right? And when I go to break that fast, then there's going to be some decisions to make. Those decisions are going to affect the scale, obviously, but they're also going to affect the quality of my sleep that night. And so if you're having trouble like closing your window, or having a meal instead of it becoming a slippery slope or a graze fest window because my cravings are up, maybe because it was a poor night of sleep yesterday, okay, then let's make one or two better decisions when you go to break that next fast. Maybe it's reducing the processed carbohydrates on that next meal so I can sleep a little bit better. And maybe I don't have all the cravings that lead to the additional episode, on Netflix that night. So I can get a little bit better sleep. Okay, great. And then when I go to make my next fasting decision, I can also do that and go, all right, maybe I'm going to set a deliberate timer for that next meal, going into a particular time of day that I already planned out when I set the fasting timer, rather than freelancing it going into that fast. Okay, so now I've made two very, very good, deliberate choices that I could do and continue to do and see results on the scale from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we're going to rat-a-tat-tat a few more things you can do with your sleep to optimize your fasting windows, the ease of your fast, and your weight loss. But what I'm hearing there is don't try, like in the Matrix, to learn how to like install an entire how to fly a Black Hawk program. Like, just don't try to digest it all and put it all in one. Like all of these morning routine gurus out there, and I've I've probably bought and purchased and watched and taken lots of their courses.
Like a 72-step morning routine.
Yeah, I have a 3-hour morning routine. No, you don't. Okay. We need effective. We need repeatable. So don't try to build the pyramid all in 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Start slow. I love all the cliches. It's great.
Yeah, right.
Start slow. My wife actually just said to me the other day, she's like, so I've been working a little bit later into the evenings again. She's like, so what's going on with that? Huh? How you doing? And it's a direct correlation. My sleep performance has decreased 12% in the last 30 days. And she's like, so yeah, what are you going to do about that? I was like, thank you. She's like, that wasn't an answer. I'm like, yeah, it was. Thank you. Well, I'm going to start to pull back because I have a bedtime reminder on my phone. I'm going to start to pull back, not just I've been staying up an hour and a half, probably 90 minutes later than I should.
Yeah. So
I can't just go back to laying back down 90 minutes earlier every night because I'm literally just going to lay there.
Is it because you want to get more done?
It's been a necessity lately, right?
Yeah.
So there's been some changes in our day-to-day and our schedules, and it's just been like, all right, well, I got to get it done somehow, and I still want to see my wife and be a husband, and so it's like, all right, I'll just stick these few hours
against
in
the margin.
Yeah, I'll just stick it in here. Everybody else sleep, not a big deal. It's quiet. Put some music on, my headphones, boom, get it done.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to pull back that bedtime by about 10 or 15 minutes over the course of the next couple of weeks. A couple of nights, I'll move it back 15 minutes, and I won't. Yeah. I'm not allowing myself to sit down and do that every single night. So I'm going to decrease the frequency of it happening. Then I'm also going to pull back the average bedtime. Cool. So what I think I want to do, Tom, is I want to give away the sleep guide that we have because it's 6 categories of things, small things that you can do. But overall, big picture, as we wrap up today's conversation, head to the show notes. You can grab the fasting blueprint if you're newer to fasting. It's the blueprint to fasting for fat loss. It'll give you an idea of like how to ramp up, how to kind of set your schedule. Talks about some of the how, who, what, when, where, and why of fasting. Yeah. The importance of it, getting the weight off, etc. But then also the sleep guide is going to just simplify the process because sleep science is very robust, especially now. And it's very overwhelming. Yeah. if you're that type of personality. Speaking to myself again. I feel like I'm on the couch this week. So I want more data. Like I want to see it. But big picture here, aim for at least 7 hours. So either set your alarm a little later in the morning, move your bedtime a little bit earlier in the evening. But let's aim for that 7. Let's not go for my Whoop's telling me 9 hours and 18 minutes is what I need tonight.
Right.
Okay. Unless the wife and kids go away for a couple days, that's not happening. But what can I do? Oh, I can aim for 7. Yeah, that's doable, right? Set a regular bedtime and wake up time. Yeah. Because inconsistency can also raise the insulin resistance, not just the night to night time, but inconsistency. And post weight loss, having a consistent bedtime helps you keep the weight off. Consistency, right? So avoid, Tommy, you already mentioned this, avoid eating dinner close to bedtime, close your window earlier, and put in those better food decisions later in the day.
Especially if you're doing OMAD dinner right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is huge.
If you're going to make a poor food decision, make it earlier in the day. Let's just be real, please.
Yeah.
I'm helping you here for your sleep hygiene, okay?
It does matter. Yes.
It does.
The timing of it matters.
Yeah. Yep. So do things like caffeine. My wife can't sniff caffeine past noon. I can have a coffee at 3 p.m. and go to bed on time. It's fine.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, it's not fine, but
yep.
It's okay.
Doable,
alcohol,
not optimal. Doable, not optimal.
Yep. Alcohol is another one. It completely messes with your REM sleep, dramatically decreases your REM sleep, which is going to have a direct effect on your next day and your cravings and your hormone levels and your insulin resistance.
It takes over your liver activity overnight too, which your liver is so important for fat loss. You know, so you're literally hijacking some of the fat loss potential right there. Yep.
Get out, even if it's cloudy, like it's been here in Houston, hazy, right? As we're exiting spring into summer, it'll be here before we know it. Get some light routine. Get some light into your eyeballs without sunglasses early in the morning. And then as the sun is setting, that dawn and dusk light. Don't exercise late. Make sure your room is dark and cool. Okay. Just put up a tapestry, old school, dorm room style. Spray paint your window without your wife or husband knowing. One of the first things we did when we moved into this house was I ordered blackout curtains. My wife found the curtain rod for the window because it's kind of like a 4-part window. It's like a bevel out in our master bedroom.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Horrible to try to make good sleep hygiene though, because it's like all these angles, and I got a 4-piece curtain rod with a thing and a thing. And then we got cellular shades, right? These pull down shades that are blackout. They look really great. That was literally the first thing, other than making sure that the internet and the water was turned on when we moved into this house. This is the first thing we did. I go to hotels, I literally bring electrical tape with me. It's in my bag. Like, I am blocking out all of the light. So make sure it's cool and dark, and just start with 1 or 2 of these things. And then in the sleep guide, we have a couple others, like decreasing your blue light exposure, shutting the TV off, those types of things, decreasing your hydration later in the day, getting most of your water in earlier in the day so you're not up peeing all night. But sleep is such, like you said, if we wanted to break it up into thirds, and for me, it's probably more like 40% of the problem, of the long-term problem. It's just so important. And we want to make your fasting lifestyle easier. So just picking 1 or 2 of these things can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it can. So like, do that starting today. Don't try to change everything all at once, but grab 1 or 2 things that you really want to work on, and then do those tonight.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Put it into action right now. Get your first rep tonight, and then going into your next fast, make 1 more decision, especially if it was a little bit easier because your sleep was a little bit better, and get the momentum going 100%, because that's when we start to see the scale start to move. That's where we start to gain the confidence in the long-term sustainability of this as a lifestyle, because it really does all work together. It's not just, oh man, if I just get the calories right, then everything else is going to fall into place. No, absolutely not. So, but we can optimize 1 step at a time. So absolutely get started. No time to waste.
I'm going to say this to myself.
Okay.
If you're tired, go to bed.
Yeah.
That's a message to everybody, including me. I need to hear it. It needs to be everywhere. Don't miss that opportunity. If you're drowsy, if you can go. Do it. And take a nap if you need to. It's okay.
Yeah, no shame.
It's okay to
proud
say.
Of it.
It's okay. Moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas out there, friends, family members, just coworkers, go take a nap in the car. You're tired? Go to sleep. Sleep is that important. I don't care if you're sleeping in the car. I'm not going to bang on your window or try to rob you. I'm just going to, hey, look at that guy. Sleep hygiene. It's important. All right, Tommy.
You're going to be jealous.
I am going to be jealous. I'm going to be like, I'm pull up in the spot next to him underneath the tree.
How did you do it?
Show notes, blueprint to fasting for fat loss. Grab our sleep guide. We've never given away the sleep guide before. So I'm really excited about that. See the response for it. Set those fasting timers, Tommy. Appreciate the conversation. As always, we'll talk next week.
Yeah. Sweet dreams. See ya. So you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.